My name is Ben Liadsky, and I'm the Program Manager at the Counselling Foundation of Canada. The Counselling Foundation is a family foundation based in Toronto, which is on the traditional territories of the Huron-Wendat, the Petun, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Mississauga Anishinaabe of the New Credit. The foundation has been around for over 60 years now, and at the core of that work, even going back 60 years, has been a focus on supporting young people in Canada with their career education and career development. And today we work across the country from coast to coast to coast to that end. So the main way that the foundation supports capacity building is through a unique grant to a charitable organization called CERIC, C-E-R-I-C. It's actually the foundation's largest grant recipient, and we supported the creation of the organization way back in the early 2000s. So in many ways, CERIC is actually kind of like a sister organization to us. We share a lot of resources, we share office space. I occasionally work on CERIC projects, CERIC staff occasionally work on foundation projects. We're very closely connected. And their mission is to advance career development in Canada, and they act as a resource for the sector by doing things like commissioning research, and they do knowledge sharing, like hosting conferences and webinars, and connecting people who are in the field of career development with one another. So for us, the capacity building is a real benefit in terms of CERIC, because we're seeing CERIC as a way to support the field. So people who are career counselors and career practitioners and are working in policy development and workforce development are able to come together and learn from one another. And it's really been a network that's been exciting to see grow. So we see capacity building for the sector as one of the ways that CERIC has been really valuable to us. But also for our own grant recipients, we see CERIC as a vehicle to support our own grant recipients, because through things like their annual conference or webinars that they host or some of the publications that they have, we allow our grant recipients the opportunity to share some of the work with others in the field, and also to hear from others who are in the field in other parts of the country or working in a similar fashion, to connect with one another. And so we've heard lots of great stories, and over the years have a few really nice examples of those sort of connections and opportunity to share information really leading to new partnerships and new conversations and new ideas forming. So it's really been a way for us to support capacity in that respect as well. So my recommendation would be quite simple, I think, and that's really to ask your grant recipients about what they need and how you can support them beyond the grant that you've given them. I think one of the things we've learned is it's not just the funding that we can provide that's able to be of value to our grant recipients, and it's not just the ability that we have through CERIC to share information, but it's those informal chats that we're able to have where we can really talk about what's important to the grant recipient, and we can ask questions and learn from them about what's going on. And then we can think of our own network and our own connections and how we might be able to play a matchmaker role and connect them with somebody who might be facing a similar challenge or working on something that maybe there's a partnership that could be come out of that conversation. So it's really just thinking about your own network, the ability that you have through your sort of bird's eye view of all the different projects that you might support, and connecting on a very personal level with your grant recipients so that you can have those open conversations about what kind of supports are really going to be valuable. So for us, when we think of decolonization of our practices, we're thinking about a couple of things. From a grant perspective, one of the things we've been trying to do more recently is to invite more voices into that process. So recently we started an external reviewer process where it's not just foundation board and staff who are looking at a grant application, but we invite people who have particular expertise or might be from the community that the grant applicant is seeking to work in or with, as a way to ensure that we're valuing different perspectives and not just in our own little bubble. We're also thinking, more generally around, I'll say, how do we get out of the way sometimes? So an example of that would be, we're looking at a couple of areas where we can provide the funding to a third party or another organization who is more in that space, and they will be the ones who handle the decision-making. So as an example, the Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund was a new collaborative fund that was created during the pandemic that the Counselling Foundation was involved in the early days to help support. And more recently, the foundation has agreed to provide funding to the Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund with no strings attached. We're providing the funding, but it's their grant making process. It's their applications that they solicit. They will evaluate and determine what gets funding. And for us, that's an important part of how we think of decolonization as well, because this is a fund for Indigenous people, by Indigenous people. Decisions are made by the Indigenous people. And it's just a recognition that funding and philanthropy can be done a different way in our perspective, where we who are a bit more removed from some of those communities don't need to be the ones holding the final decision, and we can allow different processes that might be more appropriate for some of those communities to take shape. So I'll say one of the things that I like about my role is that I do get to have those personal connections and conversations with applicants as well as grant recipients, and it allows me to think about my role a little bit differently than just reading a report or trying to synthesize information for the board or my boss or whoever, but really more about these are people who are experts in their field and are leading organizations and are doing really cool and exciting work, and I get to help them with that. It's sort of how I see my role, and very small part of my role, or very small part of their success, I should say, is me and my little bubble trying to type away or whatever it is I'm doing. But regardless, I think it is part of the job of my role as a program manager to support our grant recipients and people in our network to succeed. And so I look forward to those opportunities if I can make a connection to someone in our network that will help them to do their work, or if I can make their life a little bit easier by extending a deadline, or whatever the case may be, or if somebody just wants to talk about something that they're working on, and do I have any thoughts or ideas from what I've learned from working with other organizations that I could share. I'm happy to do those types of things, and I look forward to ways that I can support and really just be useful, I think, is kind of how I think of my role.